Tasting a whiskey is very important. That is the key to it all. Knowing the difference between just drinking a whiskey and tasting a whiskey. It forms that intimate bond and that knowledge, that relationship with the whiskey. And that is so important. So very quickly, have a look at the label, have a look at the bottle, appreciate the art, the culture, the thought that's gone into that. But we want to taste it, so we're going to listen to it. We're going to pour ourselves out a good measure because we want to see it moving in the glass. And already I'm beginning to taste it because I am seeing with my eyes and I'm also beginning to smell it. And look at it. I'm using the Glencairn tasting glass and I'm moving it around and I'm observing it. I'm looking at the legs coming down. I'm looking at how they're spaced because that tells us a bit about the strength of the whiskey, the oily nature of the whiskey or not. But it's also causing my brain to anticipate the next stage. The next stage, smelling the whiskey. Do you smell from afar or close? Some people say from afar, some people say close up. I say do both. I've already smelled this whiskey. When I opened it, I got that first waft. Even now, from this distance, I can smell those light notes coming up. But I want to enjoy it more, so I'm going to get into this glass. Beautiful. And I'm going to make notes. I'm going to write down, because if it's the first time I've tasted the whiskey, I want to remember it. I'm going to write down the experiences I'm getting from it. And I have done an episode about writing notes. If I want to release a bit more of it, I pour a little bit into my hand. I warm it up. I make that little hole. And I breathe it in. Fantastic. Now that is creating a bond between me and that whiskey because I'm smelling my own hand infused with that whiskey. It's a potent, powerful aroma. But of course, by now, I'm really ready to taste a bit. So here we go. Wonderful. But I'm hiding a secret here that you've not noticed. What's going on inside my mouth? I have got a tongue. And my tongue is laid flat. But before I taste this whiskey, I cup my tongue slightly. So when I pour that little bit of whiskey in, not too much, but enough to be able to move it around, I pour that in, it goes down into that cup, and then I lift my tongue, I arch it back slightly so that whiskey gently pours over to my tongue, so my palate becomes coated with this wonderful substance. And I can experience that sensation, I can feel the texture of the whiskey, but I am also getting those flavours coming out to their full. It's reacting to my taste buds. And having done that, I then will move it around, not violently, I'm not doing a mouthwash, I'm allowing the whiskey to explore and spread out. And as it does that, I'm enjoying those tastes, but I'm also focusing myself on how those tastes change. There's an episode here about adding water to whiskey, and some of the principles of that are going on now inside my mouth. I'm feeling the texture of that whiskey and I'm feeling how those textures and flavours change, even after I've swallowed it. The aftertaste, I'm making notes of that and I'm enjoying that and I'm still smelling it, but this time I'm smelling it from the vapours coming up inside and out through my nose. They're slightly different, but they are still so enjoyable. And then I go in for another. But this time the flavours are slightly different because I've already opened up my taste buds to anticipate those flavours. I've already got a coating over my tongue from the flavours before. And one of the wonderful things about whiskey is just a little sip, flavour-wise, can go on for a long time, long after you've actually swallowed it. And that makes a big difference between tasting and drinking, because if you just drink it, if you just shot it, it's gone. And tasting, it just brings out so much more. And once you've done that tasting, once you've got that logged down, you know whether this whiskey that you've just tasted is going to be good for cocktails, and which cocktails, or whether or not you could benefit from making a highball from it, or whether or not it would go well with chocolate, or whether it would go well with cheese, or whether it would go well in a hip flask going on a nice long walk, or whether it's a whiskey that you could share with other people in social encounters, or whether it's more one that you'd want to take your time over in front of a log fire. It's to do with building that relationship and understanding that whiskey. And that's it. That's how you taste, or how I taste a whiskey.